This is Brian Bates, co-chair with Rob Wilson of the Stony Park Timberline Fernwood Planning Committee. It's December 9th on 5 o'clock. This is one of our monthly meetings that I'm calling to order. And let's go to Melissa or Jessica and see if we have a quorum. Could you please read off have the members of the committee introduce themselves quickly? Well, let me do that. Let me start with John Ruggles, please.
Okay, John Ruggles here. I am a Planning and Zoning Commissioner for Coconino County from District 2.
Thank you, John. Dave Browning.
Dave Browning from, excuse me, Pioneer Valley in Stony Park. Been here since '06 and involved with this committee as well as some other things throughout the county.
Thank you, Dave. Monica.
Hi, I'm Monica. I guess I'm in District 2 and lived here over 30 years and just enjoying my time.
Thank you, Monica. Evelyn.
Okay, I'm a bit frazzled. I've had too many things happen in the last 15 minutes. Evelyn Wani, committee member, District 2. That's it.
Thank you. And Jim Clifford.
Jim Clifford, District 4 Planning and Zoning Commissioner. Sorry, I'm on a different time zone, so it's hard to keep track. That's about it.
Thank you, Jim. And Liz Baldwin.
Unmuted, Liz Baldwin, nurse practitioner, District 4. Happy to be here. Let's dig in.
Thank you, Liz. And as I said, I'm Brian Bates, longtime resident in Stony Park and co-chair of this meeting. Let's go to our public. Let's see. Jessica, how many people do we have from the public with us this evening?
I haven't counted them up yet. Let's see. I see 1, 2, 3, 4. I see 4.
Okay, can you, the ones I see are Russell Weedman, Jim Phillips. Jim, are you with the community or are you with the county? Jim Phillips.
Forgot to unmute myself. I'm just a retiree, moved down here from Minnesota.
Well, thank you for joining us, Jim. Welcome to our committee meeting.
I bought my house here in Fernwood in 2015.
Okay, thank you, sir. So the people I see are Barbara Greenless, Russell Weedman, Russell is on twice, Doug Meyer, Kelly Bingham. Am I missing any community member?
Kelly's with the county, and our 4th community member is Doug Meyer, who I see.
Yep, okay. And I'd like to recognize, before we go any further, Arena Contreras, who is the assistant to Supervisor Vasquez.
Did you want to ask if Arena has an update?
Yes.
Yeah, so he is on his way. He's getting his kids situated right now. So he'll hop on when he comes, when he's got a minute. But the main thing he wanted me to kind of just talk about is great work, everyone, for working through this plan per usual. Also, there's some topics going on at the county right now is the American Rescue Plan monies. So he's really encouraging everyone that if they have an interest in knowing where the board's kind of going with that stuff, to rewatch the different meetings that have gone on, because there's been some really good discussions and they're located on the county YouTube site. So they're free, open to watch, and the only thing is you got to kind of scroll through them. The other thing is redistricting is coming up. The county is formulating a plan for some public comment specific to the county maps, and that'll be in late January and February. So once we have some more information on that, I'll be posting it in the newsletter. I'll be sending it out to everyone whose contact I've got. But they're going to be doing in person, hopefully, depending on the situation with the world, and some virtual to make it accessible for everybody. So if that's something that you're interested in, you can always reach out to me and let me know if you have any questions. The other thing is to kind of keep an eye out on the mental health stuff that's going on for the ARPA money. That is really going to be something that'll change the way that we do mental health services up in this region. And so that's something that he's really passionate about and just wanted to throw out there. But yeah, everything else seems to be moving and rolling, and I will be here during the holidays. So if something comes up, just let me know. And at the moment, that's what I've got. And if there's any questions, just let me know. And he will be on shortly. So thank you.
Thank you, Audrina. Is there a representative from Supervisor Begay's office? Hearing none, let's move on to public comment. For those of you members of the public, if you would like to address our committee, please unmute yourself, introduce yourself quickly, and then share with us your thoughts. You will have 3 minutes, and I actually have a clock with a second hand this evening. So any community member wish to address the committee? Hearing no comments, let's move on to our next next event, please, Melissa.
Okay. And I see Bernice is joining.
So you all have received the meeting notes from November 18th. And I assume that you have reviewed them as I have. Do I have any comments or corrections on the meeting notes from November 18th? Hearing no comments, I move that we adopt the meeting notes from November 18th as recorded. All in favor of the committee members, simply say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye, please.
Done. Okay, I hear a majority of the quorum has accepted them, so what's next, Melissa?
And I see Bernice has joined us. If you wanted to recognize
Oh.
Bernice.
Thank you. Bernice, you want to quickly introduce yourself and we'll get moving on then?
Okay, thanks, Brian. My name is Bernice Carver and I've lived in Stony Park for about 44 years and been very active in the community and 4-H, and really like to see us plan for the future of this community to keep it rural and stay in line with the survey results. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernice. Let's move on to our next. Anyone else join us, Melissa?
I don't see anybody else yet.
Thank you. Okay, open house comments. Could you take us through this, please, Melissa?
Yeah. Yes, we're continuing review of the comments that the committee received from the September 28th open house. I just kind of wanted to do a reminder of what you're looking at. There were quite a few comments. Overall, a total of about 175 comments by 42 commenters on goals and policies and the vision statements. And just for documentation purposes, I wanted to mention that we are keeping a spreadsheet of the dates that the committee is reviewing each comment. They there will be a video timestamp. So if people are interested in go back and review the video to review the committee discussion, whether or not a change has been made, and then just a summary of the reason for a change or no change. So we are keeping that documentation for you, and we'll have that prepared as one document when we're finished. So just to bring us to where we are tonight, the sections that have been completed are shown with the check marks. And then for tonight, we were on target to start off with water resources and wastewater treatment. There are 5 comments to review there, and then go into land use growth and development. You'll notice that we had a couple of meetings ago to schedule public safety for December 16th, which is a week from tonight. So we'll talk about that a bit later, but just to kind of put us into perspective as far as where we are. After that, then there'll be transportation and circulation to review, and then there are some comments to review on the vision statements. So with that, then, Brian, I would get out of the presenter mode here and go into the document that we've been reviewing.
Thank you, Melissa.
Okay, so this is the document. Oh, hold on. I need to reshare.
And Melissa, I'll have a procedural question before we get started.
Okay. Okay, so this is the summary of the comments, and I can make this larger if it's needed. So these are the open house comments, and then we also have the document, what we call the bubble document, which shows the actual text of the goals and policies, and then the comment from the online program. So this other table are the combined comments from both the online comments that were emailed, or comments that were written on the boards during the open house. So Brian, the first section up here are the water resources and wastewater treatment policies, goals and policies.
Okay, I have a procedural question.
Okay.
When we did our community meeting at the school, Cromer School, those of us that are on the committee, many of us refrained from putting in comments because we were wanting to get comments from the public. I do have a couple of comments myself, and my question to Melissa is it appropriate for me to ask these as we go through the water policies, or do you prefer that I write them up and send them to you for future consideration?
Well, since you're on the committee now, Brian, and we're looking, are they relevant to these policies that we'll look at, the water resources and wastewater treatment? Then just bring those up tonight as you're reviewing this section.
I just want to make sure that we're consistent in how we're approaching things. Okay, so let's start with water resources. Let's see.
So the first one is related to water resources policy number 6. And I can show you what that is. It's under the goal, water conservation is practiced by residents and businesses. And the policy you can see here, did the policy show up?
Yes.
Okay, so that displayed. I just wanted to check on that. So Water Resources Policy 6 says the county and Donny Park Water should continue to develop and implement specific water conservation policies. For example, xeriscaping or low water flow appliances and fixtures. Donny Park Water should provide education for property owners regarding implementation of such policies. Because of the limited water and infrastructure resources of Donny Park Water, the following water conservation measures are supported. And then there's also see also sustainability policy XX. And that is a reference to that other section of the sustainability policies. And the question was on this comment, is sustainability policy XX a separate document? Well, it's a separate chapter in your document.
Thank you. So that seems to be a comment that is self-resolved. Let's go on to the next one, please.
The next one is related to policy number Water Resources 5. Did you want me to read the comment, Brian?
Yes, please.
The comment is, might the county seek out information or studies that could point to areas of particular vulnerability to contamination or pollution? Donny Park Water knows where its wells are and probably knows a lot about the underlying aquifer. But it seems we could benefit from knowing a lot more about where within the area we should be avoiding potentially damaging discharges or activities. And policy 5 is under the goal that water resources are protected from contamination and depletion. The policy states Donny Park Water will continue to provide information on water quality and supply to the county regarding long-term water supplies for new subdivisions. The USGS could provide additional information and analysis.
So the comment was about vulnerability. Seems we could benefit from knowing a lot more. Well, we could encourage Donny Park Water. Well, they already do. They send out a brochure at least every year, maybe twice a year, that gives all of their chemical testing data. That is in accordance, my understanding is it's in accordance with the Safe Drinking Water Act. Though the regulations on that on a national level, this is my personal perspective, are a bit out of date because of a lot of other contaminants that we now have. Does any member of the committee have a comment or a suggestion related to whatever that number 113? Any committee member with a comment?
So Brian, I know what you're talking about on the report that we get. And that's just current. It seems like this person here is seeking, are there other entities that could give information that aren't so localized as Donny Park testing its wells or USGS? And I don't know, because this is out of my realm, but I think they're trying to dig deeper. And like you mentioned, there's other contaminants now. Donny Park's tests only go with what's in our water, but not where it could be coming from. So is there another source other than USGS that would know about our water tables and where our pollutants are coming from?
Not to my knowledge, Monica, and that's an excellent point. Because Donny Park Water, I believe, has their water tested in Phoenix. They have to have an outside source do that. And then that is the data that we get in the notification. But I don't know of any other testing that's done unless it were contracted by Donny Park Water from a local testing company such as, oh golly, I can't remember the name of it now.
Yeah, so that tells us what we have now,
Yeah.
whereas this person might be seeking out, do we know what's coming?
Well, and
A
that's
crystal
part of
ball.
my comment in a minute.
I have a comment. on that. One of the things that I saw, they talk about vulnerability of contamination rather than just testing the water. Is there some place where there's something that could drain into this
Yes.
area? I think we should ask that kind of a question to the water, Donny Park Water, to get a response. They may say there's, hey, it's so many thousands of feet down or whatever, and in rock or whatever, you know, and say that it's really not vulnerable to outside contamination.
Dave, you bring up a very good point. And when we met with Donny Park Water, you may remember that I asked about, do they know where fault lines are? Because along those fault lines, the water is going to seep into the aquifer much more quickly as opposed to filtration through 1,800 feet of sediment. And they said, no, they didn't know where they were. And I pointed out that there is a fault line just outside of the wastewater treatment plant. It's the where the Native American sites are, Picture Canyon. The falls there at Picture Canyon.
Right,
So we do know that water is seeping into the aquifer. Don Bills has done a lot of work on this, and in fact, within 2 days, water can leave either the reclaimed water plant or the wastewater treatment plant and be into the aquifer.
Hmm.
So that brings up, I'm glad you brought that up, because my comment to add a possible policy WR5, letter B maybe, and that would be this: encourage the county to work with the city to mitigate potential aquifer contamination from the wastewater treatment plants and the Rio de Flag discharge, reclaimed water discharge.
You read that again, Brian?
Yes. Encourage the county to work with the city to mitigate potential aquifer contamination from the wastewater treatment plant and or the Rio de Flag reclamation plant. Do I have any comments from the committee?
This is Bernice. I have a comment. I like what you said, Brian, even though your name's Barbara on the screen.
These things happen.
Anyway, there is that sinkhole. I don't know if it's a sinkhole or what kind of a hole it is over by the country
It's the
club.
bottomless pit.
The bottomless pit, exactly. And you know, there could be more of those things around too that we don't even know about. And I just wanted to bring that up, is that's a potential site where water could be leaking into the aquifer, and probably couches and tables and chairs and everything else.
So I was at a presentation that Donald Bills, he was the lead water scientist at the U.S. Geologic Service here in Flagstaff for 25, 30 years. Recently, well, retired 2 years ago. The point behind it is that he identified the bottomless pit as the most likely place in which water can get down into the aquifer quickly.
Mm-hmm. I'm concerned about things being built around there, but like you said, we need to coordinate with the city since that's in city jurisdiction.
It is within city's jurisdiction, and the city is in compliance with the Clean Water Act, although that's needs to be revised. By the way, I do a lot of work in this area. My concern is that we're getting contaminants in our drinking water in Doney Park. Part of this, the reason I can say that is that Doney Park Water told me directly that they had to shut down well number 1 because of high nitrate concentration in the water at well number 1. And
Where
that high nitrates would have been coming from the wastewater treatment plant because well number 1 was close to the water course of the Rio de Flag.
Brian, am I hearing then that it's the committee in favor of adding policy 5A?
I am proposing that. I'm asking now for comments from the committee.
I would suggest if I could just suggest then that if you are adding that policy, you craft into that the essence of this comment here. And this commenter is asking for more information about sensitive areas or areas that should be, considered, like what you're talking about, the bottomless pit, that could potentially impact your aquifer quality. So just looking at the language, I would suggest that you craft this to encompass both of those thoughts.
Has anything been mentioned about the Marica well when they opened it up? It was high in, what is that?
Where's the Marica well?
It's in between Townsend Winona Road and Silver Saddle Road and Coke Field and 89. It's off of Coke Field Road and you go west on one of those streets. There's a Marika well. It was supposed to feed Cromer School, but when they opened up the Cromer School, the Marika well at the time was high in barium. That's the substance, it was high in barium. It's a radioactive isotope. It's natural in the ground, but when you get too high of concentrations, it can be hazardous. So they had to mix the water with the Marika well with the rest of the system and stir it around and then send it through so that they would be able to and they also got an exemption, I believe, from ADEQ or the EPA. I read about when I was working for ADEQ, and they got an exemption. So that's something to be concerned about too.
I don't know much about that now. I don't know much about the Marika well, but I do know that I believe their water comes from the well and the storage tanks that are over there just off of Yancey.
Yeah, that's the area.
Yeah, okay.
I think there's only one well over there, isn't there? That would be the Marika. Also, we have to consider the dump, everything that's going into the dump, the medical waste, the industrial waste, the commercial waste.
Okay.
Yeah.
I understand your comment, Bernice.
Mhm.
That's outside of our ability to work
But
on.
it is a source of contamination that we should be aware of.
I agree with you.
Mhm.
I'm not sure. I would have to ask Melissa if that's even something we can put into this document because it's outside of our planning area.
Mhm.
Sorry, it is outside of your planning area from what I understand.
Mhm.
But you could craft this policy to, in general, encourage Stony Park Water to look for sources of potential contamination and identify where those are. I'm sure they have. They have to write a report to ADWR every year.
Right.
So I have not read that report, but.
Can we come back to this and craft it a bit more? I wanted to bring up the idea and to see if there was support for it this evening.
Well, Brian, one thing you could do is work on the language if the rest of the committee wants this addition, and then bring it back for committee review later.
Could we work on coordinate with the city on the landfill as well as the wastewater plant?
I believe that we can.
Mhm.
The city does do water sampling at the landfill, and they have a very good track record of maintaining most of the liquids there at the landfill.
Mhm.
That's based upon conversations I've had with some of their employees.
Brian Harriet Young is joining us.
Thank you. Before I go to Harriet, any other comments on the proposed perspective that I'm offering in policy, adding policy 5A?
Brian, I'll have to concur with you on your comments. I think they're a very good addition. You're on the right track. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Any other committee member have a comment?
Yeah, I think it's really, something that need to get a handle on, and I think you've got stuff working on it.
Thank you, Dave. Any other committee members? Let me go to Harriet Young and ask her to quickly introduce herself as a member of the committee.
I don't know what to do.
You just did it. We can see you, we can hear you. Introduce yourself quickly, please, and then we'll go back to editing.
Harriet, you muted yourself again.
It's Harriet Young, Girls Ranch Road.
I'm sorry, it's been a crazy half hour.
Hi, Harriet.
Hi.
Brian, did you want to also think about how to address this comment?
Yeah, I gotta go back and look at it again. I added, additional information from, I'm open to the committee sending me comments on how they think this should be worded, but I will come back to WR5. And I need to incorporate.
Brian, just to clarify then, are you going to address comment 113 in your edits?
Is 113 the one that we just looked at?
Yes.
Yes,
right.
I will address that
Okay.
in a proposed edit. Okay. Harriet, let's move on, please.
Hold on a second. Okay, Brian, then the next comment was a general comment received by email about water resources and wastewater treatment. So it wasn't tied to a specific policy. Can you see that? Is that on your screen here? I'm looking at this line right in the middle.
Yes, it's on my screen. I assume others can read it also.
Okay, I can read it then. The comment was, there is the water consumption of this facility, the casino. Can Donny Park Water supply their needs? This is doubtful. They must put in their own well for this facility. A real fire hydrant must provide a certain volume of water for a period of time to be considered as a true fire hydrant. The fire hydrants scattered around the Donny Park area do not meet this criteria. They are mostly used to fill fire trucks of tankers and are not true fire hydrants. I will just remind everybody that when Donny Park Water presented to you, they talked about providing water to the Horseman's Lodge. And if there was an expansion, they would not have the capacity to provide water for that. So just to kind of remind you of their presentation.
This is Liz, and I also looked at that presentation. And didn't Donny Park Water also say that you just sent us from Mark said that Donny Park can deny or approve commercial use to people? So if I guess if we did a survey or if it really came down to that, I guess as a community we vote on it.
Right. I'm not 100% sure of the process, but he did remind.
Yeah, he said it.
us that Donny Park Water was formed for domestic purposes, but that any commercial has to be approved by their board. That's right.
Yep. I just read it. So yeah, perfect.
I agree with you, Liz. That was a good summary as well. So we haven't really addressed the placement or the need of fire hydrants throughout the community. And I would agree with the individual that the fire hydrants are probably used as sources to refill fire tankers so that they're not having to run back to the fire station to reload their tankers. Do we need to address fire hydrants throughout our planning area?
Well, I suppose to answer your question, I think that would perhaps be aspirational, but we have heard plenty from Donny Park about the limitations of their infrastructure to support that and
Right.
the cost to the members of the co-op. So, you could have an aspirational goal, but I'm not sure that people would be too happy about the bill if it were to be actually done to support a real system of fire hydrants.
A lot of digging up.
Yes.
Large
A
pipes.
lot of work, a lot of money.
And Brian, I would mention that in the public safety policies, there's one PS number 9, new subdivisions should provide fire hydrants to facilitate firefighting efforts when adequate water infrastructure is available. That's in your public safety chapter.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that addresses exactly my
Yeah.
point on this, when adequate infrastructure is available. So there you go.
Yeah, I think that we leave it with that comment and leave fire hydrants alone. Okay, let's go to our next general comment, please.
The next comment still regarding water resources and wastewater. Saving water is done by not building.
I can't argue with the individual, but I'm not sure how we put that into our plan, how that would even fit.
And here, you've got a pretty substantial policy related to water conservation.
Yep,
practice.
that is true. Okay. And the last water comment, or perhaps the fourth one.
It is the final comment. Donny Park Water, I also follow their meetings, appears to be assured that we have enough water for the current conditions. They have not mentioned what would happen when more and more structures requiring water begin to put a strain on that water source, though.
I'd like to add a comment relative to that. That was something that came up during the Board of Supervisors approval of the zoning for the, I believe it's the new subdivision, Walnut Creek Meadows, or whatever the name of it is. And Donny Park at that time assured the Board of Supervisors that they had an adequate water supply to set, and I find this just phenomenal, 6,000 additional meters for residential use with the water that they think is available. So they think the water is there for expansion that is beyond the capability of the Donny Park area plan to even fit in unless we rezone everything to 1 acre lots.
My question there would be, over what period of time? Are they looking at the next 25 years, 100 years, 500 years? I know. There's no answer.
Brian, and of course, I will tell you that no one on the board asked about that. The question was answered specifically in reference to can Donny Park water supply the needs of that subdivision?
Yeah.
And they were rather general. I found that number quite astounding because in the past I've heard much lower estimates.
Okay.
I've heard from Donny Park Water that the water may be there, but the infrastructure and the pipes in many of the areas are small and can't accommodate it.
And Bernice is absolutely correct about that.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
These questions come up at their annual meetings, and that is exactly the way they put it. She's
okay.
Absolutely right.
Do we have any other comments or concerns related to water, to our section, our chapter on water?
That was it, Brian. This last one is it.
I understand from the community, these were the ones we have. I'm now asking committee members if they have any other concerns.
This is Bernice. I have a concern, or I have a comment that those last two general comments were in line with the results of the survey that wanted to keep it rural, low density, not raising the density to, because of water issues also.
Okay, thank you, Bernice. Any other committee member?
This is Liz, and I have a question. And I don't know if we should wait till land use or now, because it is a water question. For commercial businesses, I think at one time in the document, we were saying that we're going to limit it to so many gallons per month.
Liz, that's in the land use section. There's
Okay, so we don't even talk about now, even though it's about water. Okay, I just want to know if we should bring it up now because it's water, or just wait till land use. Okay.
Remember
Good
it.
idea, Liz, but we do cover that in land use, which I propose we now move to. Thank you for the segue, Liz.
Okay, let me get up to that, Brian. Okay, did that display? Did it come up as the beginning of
Yes.
land use? Okay. And then
We're
let me
now on
go,
land use growth and development chapter.
right, and let me get to the policies, the table. Okay,
Melissa, I went through today and I put a number of these that were about the same topic together. So I'm wondering if it's easier to go comment by comment, or in one case, I think there are 4 comments all about the same topic of, well, it was land use 2, number B, letter B. Is that something that works for you?
yes, however you think it would be most efficient, and I know some commenters were responding to other commenters, so those show up as individual comments. Is that what you were looking at?
I was looking at the entire set, but
Okay.
let's start with LU. Well, first of all, let me share, before we get into this, we have to keep in mind as we go through the land use growth and development section that we've got to look at the whole gestalt of it, the entire process. So we may be editing on the individual policies, but we also have to keep in mind that what this policy is basically doing, excuse me, this goal is to itemize exactly how development could occur over the next 10 to 20 years. And so a lot of these interrelate. And I just want you to keep in mind that when we're working on one part, we also have to be cognizant of what that might affect somewhere else. Melissa, let's go ahead and start with the first comment.
Okay, comment number 33. So
Yes.
that is related to land use policy 2B52. So there's a subsection, and let's look at that real quick. 2B5.
So can we look at the general policy first and then?
Yes. The general policy, land use policy 2, speaks to residential zone changes, especially those that would result in increased density, should not be approved unless based on the criteria described in this section. The applicant should demonstrate compliance with provisions of this policy. Part B of that says increases to the existing zoning density are rare exceptions and should only be approved if no other means are feasible to achieve the desired benefits described above. Such zone changes should meet the following criteria. And then the one that this policy is referring to is approval of residential zone changes is through planned residential development zoning process for developments on 10 acres or larger. In addition, requirements specified in section 2.11.g PRD of the zoning ordinance and requirements of this policy, the following standards should also apply. And it talks about access, open space, landscaping, lighting, lot size, and other preferred implementation strategy. So the comment says in treeless areas, greater open space percentages should be encouraged. And those are in quotes. Are we allowing open space up to 100%? Should there be a range of percent, or am I not understanding the statement correctly?
So basically, comment number 33 is asking, do we need to include a percent range of open area of a region?
Well, right here, it says that open space PRD, which is planned residential developments located in treed areas, should have a minimum of 35% open space. In treeless areas, greater open space percentages should be encouraged. All lots should have access, and then it goes on from there. So what this is saying, so when you have a planned residential zone development on 10 acres or larger, which is the minimum required for a PRD style development, that's when you're planning this design as a whole. So it's saying a minimum open space of 35% should be provided. And then it's saying in treeless areas, greater open space should be encouraged. So for instance, if you have 10 acres, then a minimum of that 35% should be set aside as open space.
Let me ask, is
And then
the option, go ahead.
No, I'm just going back to the comment there.
Okay, so if we were not to put in a maximum range or a larger range, would that then be something that the Planning and Zoning Commission would be deciding in their meetings? John Ruggles?
I'll give you a comment on that. The answer is yes, that is done. We have had proposals, and I'm thinking of the one in for the last remaining 40 acres that could be developed in Kachina Village, where the developer proposed open space greater than the 35%. However, there was a caveat with it when that came along, and that was increased density. More lots, more of them, but substantially increasing the open space. However, that did not fly. But we have had proposals that have done exactly this, increase the open space requirements. And that can be approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission, of course, or including the Board of Supervisors.
Okay. Let me go to Jim Clifford. If you're with us, Jim, do you have a comment? Jim, are you with us? So I'm going to offer my perception. Basically, we have this, our document sets a minimum, but not a maximum. Is it best that we set some sort of percent range in this policy, or is it best that we leave it to the Planning and Zoning Commission?
I'll comment on that. I think probably leaving it the P&Z Commission and staff to work with a developer is probably the best procedure, because every one of them is going to be different. And the topography, the terrain is going to be different. You know how varied it is throughout the county. Well, same thing applies to the Donny Park area.
Sure. Let me ask for comments from other committee members.
This is Bernice. I think it might be a good idea to put it in this plan, because we don't know what the temperament of the P&Z is going to be for the next 20 years. And we want to try to put as much into this plan that the residents want right now, to have larger lot sizes and less density.
Okay,
And
that's not the question that we're dealing with.
okay, what is the question that you're dealing with?
We're dealing with the question of whether or not we should have a maximum or give some percentage larger. Let me restate this. the individual who made the comment says you have a minimum of 35%.
Open
Should you
space.
go higher for open space?
Oh, if we should go higher for treeless areas? Is that what, I think we should put it into this plan. That's what I'm concerned about.
We did, and it says in treeless areas, greater open space percentages should be encouraged.
Yeah.
Does that cover what we need, or do we need something different?
Brian, I think that does cover it, because this is the kind of an issue we addressed with the Johnson Ranch development.
Okay,
And there are areas there that are treeless that can be flooded depending on weather and climate conditions. And much more open space in a treeless area that you have like that. And the other thing is, the other comment I saw in that was, could it be as much as 100%? Well, if it's 100%, you don't have any development.
Right.
yeah.
And Evelyn had her hand up, Brian.
Yes, I see that. Evelyn, please.
Yeah, I had put a note here to, if we could put a specific percentage and then also put should be required rather than just encouraged.
That's already in the PRD part of the ordinance.
So what you're saying, John Ruggles, is that in the PRD ordinance, there's already a phrasing of going to a higher level of open space when warranted.
Well, it allows it to be done, but the 35% is what is in the code.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me go to Dave Browning, please.
Yes, I think that in a development, you're probably not going to see two developments that are identical. So, so planning and zoning needs to help to define this particular development and not be, not have a lot of numbers that says this is the maximum, this is the minimum on everything.
Right. Thank you, Dave. Any other committee member who's not spoken have a comment?
I have another comment that I want to ensure that we keep the minimum 1 acre and not let them deviate from the 1 acre parcels.
Well, they can't, because 1 acre is the minimum size of a lot in the code.
Right, but when we allow them to do the clustering, some of the acres or some of the parcels,
Okay,
like at Johnson Ranch, are smaller.
No, they're not.
no, that's
The
not true.
minimum,
Oh, they're not?
minimum there is 1 acre because you cannot have a septic system that is on a lot smaller than 1 acre. And we have had cases where PRD had lots substantially smaller, but they had a septic system that handled the entire development, or a sewer system that handled that. And the last one of those to come along was turned down.
Okay, I still want to make sure that the minimum lot size per parcel is 1 acre.
And that's right here in this BI, minimum lot size of 1 acre should be maintained. There are some bubbles covering that, but that's what that says.
All right, thank you.
Liz has her hand up, Brian.
Liz, go ahead, please.
This is a question for John. So it wasn't Johnson Ranch, so then they just clustered them closer, but they still remain 1 acre. Is that what you're trying to say, John?
That is absolutely correct.
Okay, instead of having more open space. The other thing is the one out in Winona, the 150 acres or something, and then they made 50 homes and they had to change it because of the grade of the land or something. That's the same thing. They kept them 1 acre, but they just clustered them closer? Or did they cut the size down? Or is that correct too?
No, that is not what happened. They're all 2.5 acre lots.
Okay. But
So-
something about the gradient that he had to put something in, wasn't it because there's a
No.
place he couldn't build?
Well, no, you could build on lots, but the area on the lot was restricted because of that.
Oh, okay.
Essentially, you
Okay.
would have 2.5 acres lot, and perhaps 3/4 of an acre of it was buildable.
Okay.
I believe they have slope easements on those.
Okay. And then I don't know if this is the right time, John or Brian, when we're talking about, because someone just mentioned the street Glodia, where there's so many compounds on a private property that it's almost built out of the property, and people do it in town. They build edge to edge, 2 apartments on either side of a building. Is there any place that allows green space in private property here? I don't think we've talked about that in private
Liz,
property.
That's,
Is that not the scope of this? But I just, someone brought that up and I was like, we never even mentioned that, but we'll mention the comments later because I guess we'll go back and talk about green space
so
in another
Liz, just to
time.
clarify, what you're talking
Thank you.
about is
Yeah.
addressed by setbacks. It's also addressed by the zoning ordinance, has a minimum coverage requirement.
Right.
Okay,
Or
thank you.
rather, yes, a
That's what I was
maximum
thinking.
coverage requirement. Sorry, not
Okay.
minimum, maximum.
Maximum, okay. Thank you.
And just to answer Liz's comment, I live just the next couple of lots over from what she is talking about on Glodia. And when you've got a 2.5 acre lot, the minimum coverage is a lot of square footage.
Okay,
Maximum coverage, excuse me.
maximum, yeah. Huh.
Okay. So having gone through this, first comment, the sense I'm getting from the committee is the way it is written covers our needs and we do not need to edit. Is that accurate?
I agree. This is Liz.
Okay,
I agree.
let's move on to the next comment, please.
Okay, the next, it's number 35, and it was applied to either policy land use 1 or 2. I'll show you where that is. Number 35 was, maybe it applies more to land use policy 1. And it reads, this section bothers us the most due to the language chosen. The use of should versus shall seems very weak and leaves the existing lot sizes of 1 acre plus up for debate in the future. I understand P and Z would need to address area concerns before changes can be allowed, but this language does not feel like we have much protection in this area plan. Using the term shall does not prevent changes in the future, but it gives the area plan a stronger message for the future. And then it's got a definition per Merriam-Webster: should to express a request in a polite manner or to soften direct statement, shall used to express what is inevitable or seems likely to happen in the future.
Okay, so we have been through this previously. The Board of Supervisors directs us to use the term should, and that's what we're using. So there were comment 38, 39, and 42 were similar, were all related to this policy B1 or to policy B rather.
Policy 2, right.
38, 39, and 42.
Excuse me, can we go back to the previous comment? I agree with that person. And I thought it might be good to try to get the language in the state law that they're saying implies that we should use the word should clarified for us from the state level.
So
Other policies, other counties use shall, and we use shall in the last area plan. So that's my comment.
So Bernice, I'm not going to open that up at this time.
Okay, I just wanted to add my comment.
I'm not opening it up because this land use has a lot of detail in it, and I do want to make sure that we get through it this evening.
Brian, I would have to say that we have already voted on this issue as a
We
committee.
have.
Mhm. We voted on it without getting information from at the state level on the interpretation of that.
So we're following what our county supervisors have told us. And so we're going to move on. And Melissa, will you? I think it's comment number 38.
You have comment 38, 39, and 42
42.
are addressing LU2BI, and that is LU2B1, minimum lot size of 1 acre or greater should be maintained. This is in reference to increased zone density are rare exceptions and should be approved if no other means are feasible to achieve the benefits desired above. So they are all saying that 2.5 acres would be the minimum versus 1 acre as listed here.
I understand their perception, but I believe that code says that minimum is 1 acre. And we have indicated a strong preference for 2.5 to 5 acre lots in this document.
Yeah, and the other thing is, we just discussed open space relative to this. There are conditions for a PRD that would get you smaller lot sizes, but you're going to have essentially a sewer system, and then the overall density. When it comes to the Planning and Zoning Commission, we've reviewed some of these things before. It would be essentially that of maintaining the zoning that you have, such as AR 2.5. You cluster the lots, the rest is open space, and for a given development, such as a planned residential development, you would have no more lots than you would have for, say, the existing zoning, which is AR 2.5. But you would have a great deal of open space, similar to what we did with Johnson Ranch. There have been other developments proposed similar to that.
Thank you, John. Melissa,
Yes.
I have next comment number 41.
Yes. I can read that. It's
And-
also related to the same policy, number 2.
Yep.
Which is residential zone changes, especially those that would result in increased density, should not be approved unless based on the criteria. So I can read the comment. Land use policy number 2 is an anachronism. It is old boilerplate language that was appropriate for many decades as DPTF grew, but it no longer applies to the community in 2021. The 4 amenities listed in section 2A can be seen as the DPTF community offering incentives to developers who can provide these amenities as part of their residential proposal. But the DPTF community is in fact no longer interested in offering developer incentives. I feel strongly that the public process will protect the provision of those amenities on a case-by-case basis without the need for that language. I would suggest removing LU2 entirely, as it's not just unnecessary, but actually dangerous because it sends the wrong message to potential developers. And I
Let me
would just,
call-
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead, Brian.
I was going to call for comments from particularly committee members who we've not heard from this evening.
I agree with that comment, and I also agree with keeping the minimum 2.5 acres.
Thank you, Bernice. Other committee members?
Yeah, I'll chime in on that one. I think that when you look at these, if you have attended any meetings of the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Board of Supervisors relative to this, the developers look at this as more of an impediment to what they want. They do not want to spend the money to do all of this. This is just a bit of a limitation on what a lot of them would like to do when they do a development such as a planned residential development. So I look at them exactly the opposite way after seeing this come to the Planning and Zoning Commission over a period of, the last 10 years or so.
So John, to try to capsulate what you said, is that you view the stipulations in section LU2 as things that actually impede the development of some of the properties here because it requires more investment and infrastructure on the part of the developer.
That is correct. It tends to limit their return on investment. And I will, I will say that a planning and zoning commission, especially the way it is constituted in this county, is not there to guarantee a return on investment for a developer.
Thank you.
And
Let me
I-
call for
sorry,
comments
Brian.
from other committee members.
This is Monica. I was just gonna say, you know, one of the reasons why we put things like that in there is that for so long, like before the one that we wrote 20 years ago, we didn't have a lot like this. And that's why we've ended up with areas with no trails that are gonna link to anything else. We ended up with, you know, without a park until we put in Peaks View and things like that. And so I just think that having this in here is a way of protecting, keeping our place rural because, as John mentioned.
Thank you, Monica.
This is Liz, and I agree that we need to have details to let people know that the details of building out here. And I think it's very clear and precise, and I think we leave it in.
Thank you, Liz. Other committee members, comments?
Brian, this is Jim Clifford, and I agree with what everybody said. I believe it needs to be left in there. It is old language, but it works. And we do need to protect protect Donny Park.
Thank you, Jim. Any other comments from committee members? Hearing none, we will leave the section as it is and move on to whatever our next comment is.
It's number 48.
Number 48.
And I can read it. It's in relation to policy number land use 7. And we can scroll down to that. Land use 7 is under the goal: a variety of housing opportunities exist for individuals and families. And the policy is assisted living, convalescent homes, and residential collective homes should maintain the rural residential character of the area. Extended public notice to nearby property owners for these proposed facilities should be customized based on the location for each proposal. And the comment is, taxpaying community residents are absolutely against dense housing in our rural community, and these concerns are valid. Allowance, exceptions, and building of dense housing will compromise the very character of our rural community. So that was comment number 48. And you can see it's out here on the side. It actually may have been more geared toward number 6. Now that I'm seeing this again, the development of new multiple family condominiums, duplexes, apartments, townhouses, or mobile home parks projects should not be approved outside of rural activity centers. So
That-
making an assumption that number 48 is actually related to policy number 40. No,
Yeah, I was going to
number
say that.
7.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm. I agree with that. Yeah.
And I would note that it says should not be approved outside of rural activity centers,
Right.
which constrains any of this type of development to the rural activity center.
Brian, could I make an additional comment relative to
Sure.
that? One of the things that has been brought up a number of times is, of course, the survey and the survey results. I've looked at survey results for other counties relative to the same thing, and they're all very much the same for rural areas of the state. So the inclusion of the survey results with the final of the Donny Park area plan, I think, is very important because those survey results will be in there. And when you look at, I believe it was 87% of the respondents were against multifamily housing and similar development. When the staff and Planning and Zoning Commission look at that and the Board of Supervisors looks at it, that is going to be a pretty firm result that they have to look at and say, wow, almost 90%. Okay, that would tend to influence their decision-making a little bit.
And I think it should influence our decision-making also, and not allow multi-unit housing in this plan.
Comments from other committee members?
Oh, I'm sorry, you actually can't do that because it is contrary to the way the zoning code works. If you can make the case for rezoning for that, yes, and the code allows you to do that. You can apply for it, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get it. I agree with Bernice that we're somewhat constrained by what is in the zoning code right now.
So what I'm hearing is John is saying that the zoning code restricts what types of developments can happen within the rural activity centers. And that what we're saying is that this type of development could only occur inside a rural activity center, which are pretty small, though it is possible somebody could develop a larger residence or larger housing unit, but that again would have to go through to get approval, right, John?
Exactly. That's in a nutshell. That's it. We just you can't really say in an area plan like this, which is essentially a guidance document, that you can't do it, when there are ways within the zoning code that you could. The comprehensive plan speaks to the same thing. And we're supposed to be consistent with it, or at least we're trying to be as much as possible. So,
well, isn't this area plan the guidance document that is
hold
used
on a
by the
minute,
planning and
please.
zoning to make the code?
Bernice, hold on for a minute. We have two people that have their hands up. Let me go to Evelyn, please.
Yeah, thanks. I just want, I think this is the right time to bring in a comment that was emailed to Melissa October 20th from Russell regarding LU6. And what he put here was the development of new multifamily condominiums, duplexes, apartments, townhouses, or mobile home parks. Projects should not be permitted in the planning area unless already zoned for multifamily developments. No zoning changes to permit multifamily developments. And that, I just wanted to make sure that his comment that he emailed to us was addressed to the committee and brought up at this meeting.
Thank you, Evelyn. We were aware of that and we would have gotten to it later, but you're bringing it up now is good timing.
Yeah.
Liz, your hand is up.
Yes, I was going to ask the permission. Could we talk about Reedman's comment? Because I talked to Melissa and she said, we will bring it up tonight, but probably after we get through the comments. So I wanted to know that. And also, John, did I understand you right? We cannot limit the size of an activity center from growing. I thought in one of our policies, it was saying if it's abutted on a arterial versus if it's abutted on a major, it can only be so many dimensions going out from there, but we can't.
That is the case, Liz. That is the case. Yes. We've got a policy that's very, you have a policy that's very specific.
Right.
And that's, if you want, we'll look down there, but it's number 17.
Okay, because I remember they're questioning how big can an activity center be, but I think we have it in here, how big it can go out. So I just wanted to add that, and Weedman's comment, but Evelyn already did, so perfect.
Could we
Well-
please read LU 17?
Sure, I'll just read it. I've got it right in front of me. I'll scroll down to it. It's fairly. Okay, it's right there. So 17 is under the goal, new commercial development should occur on existing commercially zoned land. Policy 17, rezoning from residential to commercial is strongly discouraged and should be considered only as described in this section. Every effort should be made to utilize existing commercially zoned land prior to requesting a rezoning to commercial. Rezoning may only be considered if there would be an overriding public benefit to residents of the planning area and the zone change meets all of the following criteria. And then the criteria are below, but I'm going to go back up to this policy that you all are considering right now, number 6. And the comment that you are reviewing in relation to that is,
Melissa, you said that there is a specific limit to the size of a commercial area or a rural activity center. And
Yeah, I
there
thought you were
is,
gonna read
and that's
that, right.
in 17. I can go ahead and if you.
It's not limited in here that I can see. Could you please point out where it's limited?
Absolutely.
It's in
So
there,
in
'cause I
number
know that, yeah.
17, if you look in number 17 and you go down to 17D, rezoning should be limited to 660 feet of frontage on major arterial roads and 330 feet of frontage on collector roads, which should not exceed 5 acres at each corner of the intersection.
But that says.
That was it.
Rezoning. That's the rezoning. That's not the existing size of the activity center or future rezonings.
Well, sure, that is absolutely directing future rezonings. That's what that pertains to.
Can we add some language in that would delineate that doesn't mean just that one rezoning for that one parcel that is going to be rezoned? Because I don't see any limit to the size in here of the entire rural activity center.
So, and I wish I could draw this for you, but I know that you all know the Silver Saddle store at that intersection of Silver Saddle and 89. The Silver Saddle store and the storage facility with it is about 5 acres total. So envision that at each corner of your intersection, that's the total size of that rural activity center. Whether or not, so some of it's zoned today for commercial, some of it's not, some of it's zoned for residential. What this is saying is that any future rezoning from any residential to commercial would never exceed a total of 5 acres at each corner.
Can we add that word future in front of rezoning? And
Let's go back to the beginning of this. So this says new commercial development should occur on existing commercially zoned land. And then it talks about rezoning from residential to commercial. Any rezoning is in the future. Does that make sense?
Well, could it be per application? Could somebody apply to rezone? And then they could get 660 feet by 330 feet, and then somebody else come.
No, that's,
I'd like to see something in there to be specific to keep that rural activity center from growing beyond 20 acres.
So Bernice, are you trying to say, because I misread it, the way you're saying it, and now I understand, they could keep on growing the 600 and so many feet from that, from the commercial. So you want to say total.
Right, total future rezoning to limit the size of the rural activity center.
Not build on one another, but total. I see what yep.
Right. So that would confine the limits of the rural activity center.
I got that.
sure. Brian, did you want to jump into making a notation? Does the rest of the committee want to make a notation on this?
Yeah, I
policy at
think
this
we
time.
do. I was actually trying to figure out how to phrase. I understand that Bernice and Liz are proposing that we make certain that the rural activity centers do not grow any more than they are zoned for. Is
Well,
that accurate?
it's also any future rezonings that it's limited, whether it's current zoning or future rezonings to, it's limited to this 5 acres total at each corner.
Well,
I-
then you could say, which should not exceed 5 acres in total.
Yeah,
Just a minute, consider C. The zone change is limited to the land
zone change is limited.
needed for the planned use. We have had a case wherein the developer wanted zoning to cover an area that exceeded that. That was turned down. That was what was supposedly going to be a dollar store at the Silver Saddle intersection over on the west side from the store there at Silver Saddle.
Yeah.
And that absolutely went nowhere because it was speculative. And the commission recognized that fact. So consider that.
Yeah, I still think D needs to be clarified to restrict the amount of commercial rezoning that we can have at these rural activity centers.
Yeah,
That you would say,
total.
you
And
could use language that says the that should be considered. If you put language in that says that has to be or that should be considered in any decision on rezoning for uses like that, yeah, you could certainly add that.
How does that read then, Brian? I took
That reads fine. I want to hear from committee members who have not been commenting a lot. What do you think the consequences of that are? And if we put that a total of, what's the consequences? So folks who may have been quiet, others that have a comment, please.
Liz has her hand up.
Go ahead, Liz.
I didn't mean to have that hand up. I'll get that hand right down.
Okay. Any others? I don't see any other hands up.
I got mine here. I can't find the place to.
Okay, go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, when I read this thing, the first time I read it, I said, okay, that's pretty clear what the limit is. You know, it's there, 5 acres. Yeah, and at each corner, and that seems like pretty absolute to me. What's there already?
Should not exceed 5 acres at each corner of the intersection. And therefore, 4 corners gives you 20 acres.
Well, yeah.
Okay, but what if 5 acres are already developed? Does that allow you to rezone another
No,
5?
it doesn't. It doesn't because it says which would not exceed.
Overall.
Oh.
That's the rezoning. Now, is that what does that rezoning mean? Does it mean the application for a new project?
It means somebody applies to have a section of land that maybe was residential, rezoned to be commercial, and it was at the corner of, let's say, at like Coach Field and Coach Field and Silver Saddle. Okay, you couldn't do it there. Well, it says that if it were to go through, it could only be 5 acres
On each corner.
on each corner. And that's how we get the 20 acres per commercial lot. Per.
Okay, but then somebody comes in later and wants to rezone another 2.5 acres.
It would be turned down.
Well, not necessarily. Just think,
Yeah.
the question has been raised about, well, if the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Board of Supervisors changes in the future, they could approve something like that.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Well,
Yep.
actually,
need
we
to
read
limit it
this from
now.
from planning staff perspective. We would read this just as Brian described it, that this would be limited to 5 acres on each corner total, whether or not that's existing or future rezoning. So if you've got 3 acres of existing commercial and somebody came in and wanted to rezone 6, we wouldn't recommend that be approved because that would exceed 5 acres.
And that,
And it would not be a cumulative process where you add 5 and then 5 and then 5. It's 5 total. That's how planning staff reads this policy.
and again, take a look at
Could
C.
we put in a simple statement? Right, that's good. Could we put in a specific statement that says RAC should not exceed 5 acres at each corner?
Says that.
You mean a rural activity center should not exceed 5 acres at each corner?
Right.
Says it right there.
So that would certainly get the point across very effectively, I think.
So if you also look at policy number, sorry, I'm jumping around, 13. It speaks to the activity centers and how they are intended to serve the local community and provide opportunities to meet area residents' needs locally. And then here are the descriptions of those specific activity centers.
Right, but that doesn't limit the size of them. There's nothing in that 13
Right.
limits the size. So if we put this in to limit the size of them to 5 acres at each corner, that would limit it. And keep it from-
Bernice,
keep it from
Bernice, don't you mean
Add-
5 acres total, including the corners? You don't mean 5 acres, 5 acres, 5 acres, 5 acres? Because that's how I interpret it, 5 acres at each corner. But I
That's
thought
what it
Melissa
says.
said, it could be 5 acres total of the
No,
corners.
at 5 acres total at each corner for a total
Wow.
of 20. Yeah.
Right, but we don't say that right now. If we could add that statement that rural activity centers should not exceed 5 acres at each corner, that would prevent them from sprawling.
It says that right here, though, Bernie. The
That's
last part of
rezoning
that
it.
sentence says that.
Hey, I'd like to add a comment that supports what Bernice is saying here, because this is an issue that came up with the comprehensive plan during its last update. And I know that some members of the Board of Supervisors at that time were looking at the 330 feet as being that maybe that's even too much. Was some of the discussion at the time. So if you state that you want to limit it like that, or should be limited, I think that might not be a bad idea, because there's certainly been sentiment in favor of that in the past. There certainly was during the discussions about the comprehensive plan. I served on that committee and tracked this stuff pretty thoroughly. Heard from my supervisor from my district about that.
Thank you, John. I think that most of the people that responded to the survey are wanting to limit growth. And I think this is too much. I think 5 acres at each corner is too much, but it's better than seeing 25 acres at each corner down the road by rezoning each, application. And I know.
I don't
do
see
have a
that that's even implied there.
We do have this as a guidance document, making a statement as it should be no more than that. This is the appropriate place to put something in there like that. There may be a time in the future where it doesn't work that way, but I can tell you that we've looked at proposals where, the zone change has to be limited to what's needed for the planned use. And that's another thing that says, if it's speculative zoning for part of that, no, we don't want to do it.
And there is a comment in here about speculative zone changes.
Right, but I
can't
still would like
remember.
to add that.
It's in the document somewhere.
So I have typed in here this suggested addition
Yep.
to 16D, where it would read, I'll read the whole policy. Rezoning should be limited to 660 feet of frontage on major arterial roads and 330 feet of frontage on collector roads, which should not exceed a total of 5 acres at each corner of the intersection.
Okay,
I'm
can
good
we
with that.
add RAC should not exceed a total of 5 acres at each corner?
Well, that's basically what you're saying.
No, this is saying rezoning because some of these corners already have commercial on them. And this would allow for additional rezoning, but limit it to 650 and 330 feet.
So if a in a rural activity center, there's existing commercial zoning, say for instance, it's 2 acres.
Right.
Then the total could still only be 5 acres for to include any future rezoning.
Right. Could
Right?
we add that? Yes.
That's how I read this D. So it would
Well, that's
be,
how we're interpreting it, but I think we need to say it in black and white so that there's no way, there's not a way that it could be misinterpreted later. I mean, all of us have been having trouble interpreting this, not all of us, but some.
Let me go to Evelyn, please.
Yeah, Bernice, could you make an exact statement to what you are trying to say so that we can see the difference of what you are thinking and what is written?
Okay, I would just like to add a statement that said that the total area of the rural activity center should not exceed 5 acres at each corner.
so this section is in relation to zone changes. Maybe this is not the right place to put that. The right
Yeah,
place to put that would be here under number 13.
I think you're right.
Which describes what your rural activity centers are, right? And I'm sorry, it's jumping around.
Talking about rezoning in LU 17.
So number 13, I'm going to read the whole policy. Other than existing commercial development located outside of a rural activity center, future commercial development requiring commercial zoning should be located in the 6 commercial activity centers listed below. These activity centers are intended to serve the local community and to provide opportunities to meet area residents' needs locally. The descriptions below provide a general indication of the extent of the rural activity centers, but do not preclude additional commercial zoning in an activity center if future rezoning requests meet the criteria in policy 16 below.
Right.
So this might be the place to say that the total size of a RAC is 5 acres. If you're describing, because this is where you're describing your activity centers.
So Melissa, I actually think it needs to be a separate LU, a new number, in which you would simply say a rural activity center should not exceed 20 acres with a maximum of 5 acres at each of the 4 corners.
I like that. That sums it up. Very good, Brian. That sums it up specific.
You have to say that again. Okay, I can type it here.
Okay. Rural activity centers should not exceed 20 acres with a maximum of 5 acres at each of the 4 corners. And the reason I say each of the 4 corners is if you have 6 roads come together, then you could say, hey, we got 5 corners.
Oh.
Should we put the term total anywhere? Total 20 acres or total 5 acres? We don't need to put.
No, we need the total because.
Okay. I thought that's what the word that,
or you could put.
because I thought that word was missing.
I don't know that it needs to be there, but I'm not going to argue about it.
Okay, you think it's redundant?
Yeah, I do.
I
But-
don't think it's redundant because we don't want somebody doing 2 acres at one corner and 18 acres at another corner.
Ah. Oh, then maybe we should put total near the 5, not the 20.
And I would ask you this
Have both of
question
them.
then, what if the land form would
Yeah.
include development on the 2-acre site, but would make sense on the other site?
I think we should still keep it small. To keep
Well,
it.
let's look at our rural activity centers.
There they are.
Camp Townsend, yeah.
Okay, we know that one. Burst Lane. Oh. I don't know how much Burst Lane can.
It can't take much more.
Right.
Well, how much is already there? There's probably more than 5 acres at Burris.
With that
would be
trailer park.
grandfathered in. Yeah, that would be grandfathered in.
I
But
think
it
that,
also
yeah,
limits-
that you're right, Bernice, on that. Mhm.
Yeah.
That's pretty much at its
Development
maximum
for
right
Burris.
there.
Evelyn, I see your hand up. Do you have another comment?
Nope, sorry.
Okay. I mean, I'm looking at each one of these.
Remember, number 3 is a civic activity center. It's not commercial.
Right, and the only one that I see that you might run into a problem with is Townsend, Winona, and I-40.
Yeah, Brian's right about that one.
Thank you.
But do remember that this is, again, it is a advisory and guidance document. And we do
Right.
have commercial property that is essentially grandfathered in, adjacent to and part of the activity centers listed. And the other thing in the regional plan, there really isn't a really specific definition of the activity centers. So if we're creating a little more specific definition here for advisory, in an advisory role of the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Board of Supervisors, wouldn't be a bad thing to do at all. Be very good, I think.
So I hear you endorsing the edit that I suggested.
Yes, you and Bernice have contributed, I think, a great deal to this that perhaps we hadn't considered before that would spell it out rather well.
Okay. May I have comments from other committee members? Does the committee want to adopt the rural activity centers should not exceed a total of 20 acres with a maximum of 5 acres at each of the corners?
Yes, good job, Bernice. Good job, Brian.
You bet. Go for it.
Yep.
Yes.
Are there any distinctions? Hearing none, we adopt what is now LUXX.
It will have a number.
Yes, I'm sure it will, but I just want to be specific in what we're talking about.
Okay.
Okay.
We've got
Thank you.
that. And then Brian, did you want to go back to the comment that we were originally reviewing? Which is number,
Can I interrupt for a minute?
yeah,
The smoke alarm is going off at my home. I'm gonna go see what is happening.
oh, okay.
And I'm going to mute myself. So I'm gonna be, can we take a break right now?
Yeah, we can take a
Good
break.
idea.
Let's do that. Let's take a 7.5 minute.
Okay.
Melissa,
Yes.
could you go to the other tab, goals and policies? I just kind of wanted to check out who is doing what comments.
Where did you want me to go here?
Oh, maybe it's whichever way. Let's see. There.
So,
Okay. I just want to check off the ones that we're not supposed to have.
right there, they are in here, but they're not in the table.
Okay, so you've taken them off the,
I couldn't take them off of the, what I call the bubble document, because that was downloaded from the service we subscribe to, but they're not in the table here.
okay. Do you have number 55 below? Can you,
No.
you move up or down on that? There it is, 55. Can you see who did that one? There, okay. And then, okay, so you have retracted any of, redacted any of Ben's then?
Right.
Okay. So we're not gonna see them on this particular table right here.
Correct.
Okay, just want to make sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, Melissa, I have a question.
Uh-huh.
I don't know when you might want to bring this up or it could be brought up, but to include in the area plan something about HOAs that exist in the area plan now. Just so that people know that there are HOAs in the area plan that are going to dictate certain land use or the way it looks or whatever, that may not in other places. I don't think people are aware in general that there are HOAs that exist, because if they've been here a long time and they've just kind of been out in their own place, they don't know that they're existing.
Evelyn, do you think that would be appropriate to write in the text versus making it a policy? It doesn't really seem like it
Okay,
would
yeah,
fit as a policy.
yeah, wherever we could put it, just so that people are aware that they do exist here and few between.
Sure.
Just so that, they know.
I think that's a great idea. We ought to have some way of notifying when we publish this, where the HOAs are and how to get in touch with the leaders. And so that people don't buy things or start building things without realizing they've got constrictions.
Right.
We get calls all the time from people wanting to know, and the county, we don't have any authority over HOAs, as you know.
Yeah.
At the county. So it is something that, hopefully when somebody's buying a property, they're researching when they do the due diligence, and when the title company shows the report, that document should show up because it's tied to the parcel.
Okay. Do realtors and people who are helping new homeowners or people who want to buy new homes or build new homes, do they tell them all of this stuff going in, or do they let them buy the property and then get the surprise?
Well, I would hope that it's full disclosure.
Can we make sure?
I don't know that the area plan, we don't have that kind of influence.
Okay.
You are correct about that. They are supposed to disclose that. And the other thing that it is possible to find out who is the designated person to contact through the Corporation Commission.
Oh, is that who does this?
Yes, because that is how it works, and I have done that to find out who the people are that you would contact at the Corporation Commission or with the HOA if there are problems, if you are a neighboring property to that development.
Interesting.
It takes a lot of work to do that. It's time consuming. Yes, and I understand Harriet's comment on that.
Yeah, it means that it makes for conflict. I think what I'm trying to emphasize is that I guess there are people here storming all over Flagstaff buying things up.
Mhm.
And I don't know how much of any of this is being exposed to them. And I just hesitate to think. I don't want to think about the amount of fights and legal actions that are going to be following this stampede to grab up land.
Well,
And anything we could do to ameliorate it, I would welcome myself, but
Harriet, I do know because we get calls all the time from people
Yeah.
asking the question,
Yeah.
when a title report is produced, it should show any encumbrances like that, whether or not there is an HOA
okay,
that governs the parcel. So that's part of the purchase process.
okay.
Hopefully that's all on the, hopefully the title company is thorough and they show things like easements.
Yeah.
one thing, don't get CC&Rs confused with an HOA.
Well, exactly. I was going to say there's CC&Rs that are usually, sometimes there are CC&Rs that are in place, but there's no homeowners association to manage it. So we see that in certain old subdivisions where there was never a homeowners association formed. So that's a lot trickier.
And I am in one of those areas, and the bottom line in that case is it is up to the individual to initiate a civil action if they want to enforce those CC&Rs.
Oh, boy.
And then if you go back far enough, some CC&Rs are you cannot enforce them because they are contrary to existing statute. Things like the Fair Housing Act.
Yeah. Something came up with Deb Hill years and years ago. There is some, I don't know whether it's law, custom, tradition, but if you put your horse on somebody else's property and it stays there for 20 years, or you build a shack or you do anything, after 20 years, you can't be ejected from the use of that land or whatever. I don't remember that, but I remember somebody got surprised.
That is incorrect. You're referring to the right of adverse possession.
Yeah.
In Arizona, it is necessary to file an action in Superior Court.
Okay.
To establish that. Unlike some other states where it is simply a matter of a fixed period of time.
Yeah.
So it's a little different in Arizona. We had a case that came to the Planning and Zoning Commission where that was part of the problem with the use permit involved.
Ah.
And the applicant eventually had to go, he did succeed in going to court and establishing the right of adverse possession. And it was a very small chunk of the neighboring property, by the way.
But the idiots like me who don't even know such a thing is out there. You can end up with somebody's tractor being on your property and you're being nice and you don't care. And then before you know it, the guy owns the land.
Well,
there was something like that Deb ran into. I just remember thinking how odd that was in a
it might be
property state.
You might not have gotten all of the dirty and nitty gritty details of it. And I can tell you, I can assure you that it takes a lot of homework to find this stuff out.
All right. I'm sorry.
Well, speaking of which, I'm going to take adverse possession of the podium.
Oh, right.
Are we ready to begin again?
Sure.
Sure.
Yep.
Melissa, can you remind us where we are?
Right. We were still on number 48.
Okay.
And that was in relation to policy number 6, LU6. And number 53, the next one down, is also in relation to policy 6.
Okay.
Policy, going back to policy 6. Oops.
Could you go back to policy LU3 real quickly? I want to point something out. Is that LU3 actually lays out, the subdivision and the developments, and we've had a lot of comments on it, but yet, oh, do we have comments on it? 43 and 47? I didn't see those.
So those were the redacted comments, Brian.
Oh, okay. Okay. But I thought it was interesting that there were no comments other than the redacted ones on this section, and that's the subdivision development. So that was an observation.
So back to 6, and I'll read that again. The development of new multiple family condominiums, duplexes, apartments, townhouses, or mobile home parks projects should not be approved outside of rural activity centers. And the comments related to that, the one that I read previously, number 48, tax-paying community residents are absolutely against dense housing in our rural community, and these concerns are valid. Allowance, exceptions, and building of dense housing will compromise the very character of our community. And then the next comment, which is also related to the same policy. Clearly from the past survey, from all the comments and speaking to the DPTF community, we live out here because we don't want to have mass multiple family housing around us. The city of Flagstaff has gotten out of control with high density housing buildings taking over Flagstaff. Don't let that happen to DPTF. There are some other comments down below also related to LU6. Did you want me to read those, Brian?
Yes, I actually had numbers 53, 56, 59, and 62.
Right. That's right. I just read 53.
Okay.
56, why are we even discussing high density housing? Condos, multiple family units, townhomes. This is a huge area of concern based on the survey of the area. Rural activity centers are still located in the DPTF neighborhoods. We do not want high density housing in a rural setting, DPTF. The city of Flagstaff is running wild, building apartments, etc. We don't want high density in Donny Park. Please listen to what the majority of the residents prefer. And then comment number 59, also related to this policy, building more condos and townhouses out here is not what the residents want per the survey. This needs to have defined limits. And then comment number 62, I understand the desire of area residents to maintain the current character, large lot sizes, et cetera. However, I am concerned about the long-term viability of our region's economy. Some sort of attention to housing affordability, at least in the county's portion of the Flagstaff metropolitan planning area, must be paid sooner or later. This plan in its current form doesn't really acknowledge the reality that many people working in Flagstaff must commute from surrounding areas and that housing affordability region-wide affects all of us. And I believe those are all the comments in relation to LU number 6. And just again, LU6 is a variety of housing. It's under the goal that a variety of housing opportunities exist for individuals and families. And Brian, I did have an image that I actually grabbed from the Flagstaff Regional Plan that shows what is called the missing middle type of housing. And if you wanted, I could just show it because sometimes an image is helpful to envision things. Did you want me to go to that image?
Please do.
Okay. I think I need to stop sharing this, unfortunately, but I'll do that. Okay, so going back to the presentation then, and I will just go into presenter mode. Did that image show up?
Yes.
Okay, so again, this was done for the Flagstaff for Flagstaff, but it's an interesting image because it shows what's called missing middle housing. What you see on the right is what's happening in Flagstaff, basically, this kind of mid-rise building. And on the far left is detached single-family homes. Granted, they are not being shown on 1 acre lots or greater that you have in Donny Park. But what's interesting to look at is, you know, these different styles of missing middle housing. And you can look at duplexes, triplexes, courtyard apartments, bungalows, things like that, to kind of just get a little bit of an image of what this missing type of housing might be. And policy number LU6 is basically saying, well, if there's a variety of housing types, then anything that would be similar to this type of housing style would be in your rural activity center, which again is to be, you know, neighborhood serving commercial zoning. So, you know, in normal kind of zoning lingo, if you would, you know, residential uses are less intense than commercial zoning. So, rather than commercial zones. So, you know, that's what that policy is encouraging, is that any type of, you know, housing like this would only be built in your rural activity centers. And I will say, with our recent zoning code update, where we said that, you know, in a commercial zone, in a rural activity center, in an area plan, housing would be allowed. So for instance, if you think of your Peaks View Market, you know, right now, the property owner, or rather the operator of the store, would not be able to live there under the previous zoning code. The way the update worked is that, well, you know, that would then allow a business owner to actually live and work on their same site versus having to live off-site and travel into work. So that was considered an important update for the county, particularly in areas outside of area plans that are far away, where the commercial zoning simply would not allow somebody to live and work in the same place. So, you know, again, residential zoning is residential development is considered less intense than commercial. So this is just an image that I thought might be helpful to this conversation, but I'm going to stop sharing that now unless you've got some questions, and go back to the document.
Any questions from committee members?
Did I close that too soon?
I don't think so.
90% of the people on the survey do not want multi-unit housing, apartments, townhouses, and mobile home parks. And I think we should really consider that.
I think we have.
Yeah, I would agree, John. We have considered it.
I agree too. I was gonna ask for an example of how we haven't.
Well, we're putting in apartment buildings and multi-unit housing in 6 different areas of Donny Park.
But we're not putting it in.
Read LU6, Bernice, read it. It says should not be approved.
Should it be period after approved?
Well, should not be approved outside of rural activity centers. And you're going to have trouble building them in.
Right, but they're right. So we're saying that they can be built in the rural activity centers, of which there are 6 of them. And I think that the survey clearly spoke against that.
If you look at the rural activity centers now, most of them are pretty well filled with businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see how you would put a condominium in one of those.
What about an apartment building?
Well, let me add a consideration that comes up when you do that. Okay, the infrastructure to support that becomes difficult with small areas, even 5 acres, because you're going to have to install a septic system to handle that.
Mm-hmm.
here in Donny Park. Now, we do have some small apartment complexes, one of which was recently approved for Kachina Village. But the one thing that made it possible is the fact that Kachina Village has its own sewer system. And that is what has made very small lots in other areas. Look at Mountain Air, Munns Park, places like that. That is the one thing that has made some of the developments there possible. Without that, it becomes extremely expensive and time consuming. It's a lot of work to do it.
And I
So-
would remind everybody what our environmental quality presentation informed us, that for the residential use, it would still need 1 acre to support the wastewater system per unit. So
Yeah,
that's a very limiting factor right there.
it
Well, couldn't they
certainly
have
is.
an alternative system on there?
Alternative systems are sometimes possible.
Yes, and they can process 40,000 gallons a day.
Let me go to Evelyn, please, and then I'll follow with Liz.
I'm just wondering if there is already in the area plan, an existing multifamily development already zoned.
I have to go back and look. I thought there was one very small area of multifamily zoning. I'm not remembering off the top of my head where that was. I think it might be the mobile home park.
Yeah, that,
Yeah, the only one I know of is the mobile home park off of
Mhm.
Burris.
Which mobile home
that's the
park?
only one I can think of also.
On 89.
Is it?
It's
so
off
it
of
is-
Burris.
It's the existing one. So is there any empty lot that is existing,
No,
that is empty lot existing for mobile home or multifamily development?
no.
So according to like, the comment that Russell said is, it should not be permitted in that planning area unless it's already zoned for multifamily developments and no zoning changes to permit multifamily. So at this point, unless we say something like no zoning changes to permit multifamily developments, we can't have any anyway.
They'd be grandfathered, wouldn't they?
Well, the ones that are already there, I'm saying if you've got an empty lot,
Yeah, you can't change what's already there.
right? So if there is not an existing empty lot area that's zoned for multifamily developments, and we simply just put in the area plan, no zoning changes to permit multifamily developments, then that kind of takes care of it all, right? Or am I just missing something here?
No, you're not missing anything. You say, you would have to say should not be approved.
Okay, yeah, so no zoning change to permit multifamily, so we're not using should or shall or anything, we're just saying no zoning changes to permit it.
Should be approved.
Okay,
That's
okay.
the kind of guidance you want to give to the commission and the board of supervisors.
So can't we just, with that sentence, kind of avoid all this stuff by just, because we don't have vacant lot right now. And if we just say that it should not be permitted, then that kind of puts this to rest.
And it goes back to policy 2 here, residential zone changes. Especially those that would result in increased density should not be approved unless based on the criteria described in this section.
Yeah.
Yep, it's there already.
Well, if it's there already, then we don't need to keep going with it, do we?
Well, I liked your suggestion to change this to make it more emphasis on it.
Well, it's pretty clear in LU2 there.
Well, except LU2 says, well, I forgot what it said. Go back to LU2, please, Melissa. Unless the criteria thing. There it is.
It does list the
Not be
criteria.
approved unless based on the criteria, just so that unless based, it's kind of, I don't know, I can't think like a developer because I'm not that way. But I think sometimes they could wiggle their way into words to get their way. And if we specifically say what we want, then it avoids them from wiggling as much. That's just where I'm coming from.
If you put in there,
Can we ask our planning and zoning expert on how Weasley language is and how Weasley developers are? If it says things in plain English, do you usually try to weasel it for a reason?
Harriet, this is Melissa. So if it's in pretty clear language, planning staff will make a recommendation
Yeah,
that language be adhered to. You know, any applicant can certainly justify in their own language their request, but that's what the planning commission and ultimately board of supervisors would be reviewing.
right. And I don't know if there's a, I know that sometimes the county supervisors, and we could hear from that contingent, see a larger financial reason for overriding perhaps the views of residents of an area. They may see some benefit that benefits everybody, and I can't point to any, but if they saw that, this would still be difficult for them to achieve because of the language we've got. Overturning it is hard. Is that not true?
Well, I think the language you've got states it fairly well from what I have seen and from what I have heard from the Board of Supervisors in the past. So as a matter of fact, we've had a number of cases with our current Board of Supervisors where they have decided to go against the recommendation that for approval of zoning change or development that the Planning and Zoning Commission has forwarded to the board. So in terms of what I'll go along with, one of the things that Melissa said and add a little bit to that even during the pre-application meeting, when staff meets with a developer or a builder, this kind of thing is going to be considered.
Yeah.
Going to be addressed, and in the analysis that goes to the board and also the Planning and Zoning Commission, those are the kinds of things we see in the analysis.
And what we're not showing here as part of the zoning ordinance is there are certain findings that have to be made as well. And financial consideration is not one of the findings that is available.
And those findings are essentially derived from state statute that has been in place for quite some time, for a number of years. And I know staff is very careful about how they evaluate those and making recommendations on the findings necessary for something like a zone change.
And I would say one of the findings is that it meets the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan and the area plans. So that ties it right back to this.
Could we add the words unless already zoned for multiple family developments per Russell Weedman's email as proposed by Evelyn? You know, we could add right after the word approved.
But there's nothing vacant that's zoned for multifamily.
Well, I thought you said there is still.
There's nothing vacant. There's only one small place that's zoned. I believe it's the mobile home park. It's an existing development.
Oh, okay.
You don't have any vacant.
Okay, so this is Liz. I've had my hand raised for a minute. Can I just ask a question? I thought I understood this, and now going back and forth, we don't have any zone. We can't have commercial, duplexes or townhouses now because it's not zoned that. In LUT, it says residential changes, especially those that would result in increase, should not be approved. How can we make that any clearer? It's not rezoned that way.
Yeah.
We don't want it to be zoned that way.
Yeah.
So
Says unless.
I'm not getting this. What are we circling around here? I'm not,
Yes, we've
help
said it
me.
10 different ways. Yes.
Right. Bernice, help me understand this. Is it clear? Because I thought we did have zoning for it at these activity centers, but we don't. So it's already saying if we don't have zoning, if we don't rezone it, it can't happen. And we just said, even if it does get rezoned, we should not approve it.
Right, but it says should not be approved unless based on the criteria
Below. That
section.
you're dead and I'm dead and the new people that live here want townhouses, maybe. I mean, because it says
People
if
here
it's
now don't.
right.
90% of the people that live here do not want multi.
So you want to take the criteria out. So just take the criteria.
Yes,
That's what,
I
okay.
would-
I just wanted, okay.
I liked what Evelyn said, unless it's already zoned for multifamily development, like the mobile home park. And, you know, the development of new multifamily projects should not be permitted.
So
So
take
what-
the criteria.
What I hear you're saying, Bernice, is that you want a new policy that says unless the property has already been designated as a multifamily
Yes.
center, there should be no zone changes to facilitate that.
Right.
Which is actually going to put you into a circular reasoning because you've only
Yes.
got one place that's zoned for multifamily and it's developed.
Well,
That's
this-
exactly what I was thinking too.
This will protect the rural area of our communities.
I've got a question.
Go ahead.
So there's one already zoned for it and it's already done. So there's no way anything else can happen. Now, if whoever owns the existing one on Burris tears down everything,
Mhm.
that area then is still zoned and can go multifamily again.
That's right.
Right.
But right now, we don't have anything. So what is there to worry about except a sleazy developer who's going to take advantage of us?
Well,
I-
I think we need to worry about them coming. Just
I
like
would
you-
caution the committee against characterizing developers that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, we work with quite a
Yeah.
few developers who really
I'm
have
sorry.
the best interest of the community in mind. And I would just put out to you, if you look at this goal, a variety of housing opportunities exist for individuals and families. This was a goal that you as a committee carefully thought about, wanting to be inclusive and to think about multi-generational opportunities for families, young families that want to live there, but cannot necessarily afford to live on a 1 acre, 2.5 acre parcel with a large house on it. This policy, LU6, would possibly provide an opportunity for a small duplex, a townhouse, a bungalow to be built only in the rural activity center, very limited in size because you've already limited the rural activity centers in size to a total of 5 acres at each corner, could be built there. So would you want to see a mix of maybe a nice duplex with some commercial development, maybe a coffee shop, maybe a little retail store? Is that the type of development would you want to see? Or would you only want to see a coffee shop with a retail store and no housing around it other than large lots? I'm just asking this question because this LU6 then would possibly open up some other opportunities for, you know, maybe grandchildren who wanted to live near you but couldn't afford it otherwise.
We've already addressed that in the ADUs.
Well, to some degree, but
not
not to the same degree, because ownership is different there, Bernice. Ownership it's only on one parcel. So, you know,
Right.
if, you know, Joe Smith owns a parcel with an ADU on it, then yes, sure, family could live there, but there's only one owner or a trust or whatever. But, you know, this would allow a different opportunity for other people to own something different. As a question for the
Let
committee,
me,
this is your
let me,
consideration.
let me go to Dave Browning. He's had his hand up.
Sorry.
Dave, do you have a comment? Oh, okay. You're muted, Dave.
Yeah, my comment was overcome by events.
I was just looking in the 2001 area plan. Their residential goal stated, housing opportunities exist for individuals and family with a range of incomes. We've added the words a variety. And I think that maybe we could take off a variety and just go back to the 2001 area plan.
Are we talking about LU6?
Yes.
I think she's referring to the goal, aren't you, Bernice? Or are you referring to
Yes,
the policy?
I'm talking about the goal in the 2001 area plan. It just said housing, it says housing opportunities exist for individuals and families with a range of incomes. And we say a variety of housing opportunities exist for individuals and families, which is fine. But maybe we could just take off the variety so that we don't have to include apartment buildings.
What policy are you referring to?
L6. Well, I'm talking about the goal of residential goal. Right above LU6 on the screen there, it says LU6, and then above that it says residential policies, and then the goal is right above there. It says a variety of housing opportunities. Now that we could take out the variety of and just put housing opportunities exist for individuals and families.
Somebody's going to read that as racist in about 90 seconds.
Yeah,
Well,
I agree with Harriet.
How is that racist?
Because if you say that there's housing opportunities,
Variety.
there could be all, millionaire homes,
Yeah,
but that's an opportunity.
yeah. Variety is a flashpoint. That's a flashpoint. It just is.
We have a variety out here now. We have mobile homes, we have mobile home parks, we
Right.
have small houses, we have tiny houses, we have big houses. We have a
So-
variety out here now, so I guess it's okay to say that. But-
So
but I-
Harriet,
Go to court
let me
then
come
for it.
back to Harriet, because I'm not clear on what you're saying about a variety being a flashpoint.
If you eliminate the idea that we've got to be open to a variety of incomes and people, you're looking like a gated community. And that will be, and cost will keep people out. And this will become a playground for millionaires. And we will have created a, rich people only community, which is not what I think we thought we were doing. Because if you don't have multiple multiple levels of income in your community, you look like a gated community. You're closing people out.
So you're saying to keep the words a variety.
I would, I mean, now that is a comment, and that is a preference. And so it's subject to everyone else thinking about it. But I don't want us to be seen as people who have reached paradise and locked the gates behind us. And I think that's part of the problem with living in a wonderful place like that, which we love and we want to preserve. But it is very, very, I read this stuff. All of you do. It's like, I got it. Too bad about you.
I don't think that's what we're saying.
I have to agree with Harriet.
NIMBYs.
Term variety
NIMBY.
in there.
Yeah, NIMBYs.
Yeah. It means that you are open to legal attack, regardless of how sweet we are.
Okay.
If we leave things like that, we are still open to legal recourse. Just saying.
Let's come back to what we're trying to do, and that is to articulate LU 6. What I'm hearing from different people is, one of the comments I've heard is that we should just say should not be approved and eliminate outside of the rural activity centers. However, the rural activity centers are the only place that one of these where someone could build lower income housing and still be able to meet, the sanitation or sewage system requirements, and potentially have enough water from Stony Park water. I'm not even sure that would happen.
Hey, Brian, one thing that if you look at the reality of land use in the rural activity centers that are designated, that in and of itself is a substantial limitation. You just don't have that much property to make it profitable to do something like multifamily housing. Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to come along and propose they build a new hub at, say, Copeland Lane and Highway 89.
Right, and your height limits would not allow that anyways.
Yeah.
What are the
So,
heights?
so
No, but I could see something like at Mountain View Market, they're putting a second story on there and having apartments.
yes, so this is Liz. So why don't we take out the words we don't like? We don't like multi-family units, and our census says we don't like that. So say what we do want. Do we want a duplex? Do we want above the store limited apartments? Then let's say what we do want, because the survey says what we don't want, and the committee. So why can't we put the words in there instead of saying complexes or apartment? We could narrow it, a townhouse. That means 2. Or can we not be that limited? Or just take all those words out?
I think you're getting entirely too detailed with it if you do that. And you mentioned the living above your business. Well, you have to get it, well, other than the activity center, you're gonna have to get a use permit for that anyway.
So do you just take the words out then? Take all of them out?
I don't think so, because that's pretty general.
Okay, because I thought you said we can't do half the words that we say we have up there. We can't do apartments, many apartments. We can't do a big high rise. I mean, we can't do that. So why leave it in there?
The reality is probably there wouldn't be room for
Right.
apartments. Maybe
Right.
there are some small parcels vacant in your activity centers that could fit some townhouse style development.
Right, that's just to put what we can. I don't know.
Well, my sense is that the difference we're trying to resolve at this point is whether we put a period after should not be approved, period, or whether we keep the outside of rural activity centers.
I'd like to see that should not be approved unless already zoned for multiple family developments.
Should not be approved unless already zoned.
For multifamily developments.
Should not be approved unless
Already zoned.
zoned for
Multifamily developments.
What does the rest of the committee think?
Well, that's what Russell had.
And that is, I think you'd have to consider that an aspirational goal and policy. And by saying should, I think you could include that without a problem. It simply says, okay, that's what you have to consider.
Yes.
But that's going to limit you to, that will be very limiting to anything happening.
It'd be limiting development and higher density.
Well, specifically higher density development, I think. I think we're fine about that.
So right now you've got zoned, and I'm going to correct at what we've been talking about. The only thing that is actually zoned, it's not even zoned for multifamily, which would be a different, you've got zoned manufactured home park. There's a total of 6 acres. They're all developed. You don't have any zoning right now for multifamily.
Right.
What you have, the mobile home park is zoned for mobile home park. So,
And the problem there is that it actually restricts. I mean, if you have apartments, they're generally less expensive than trying to, build your own house.
well, I actually think the mobile home park zoning district does allow for other types of housing. I have to go back and look at that. I don't have my zoning code right in front of me. John, do you recall what the MHP zone allows for in terms of use?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we have established by precedent the use of, say, tiny homes. We had a proposal for area east of Belmont on private property out there for a mobile home park, but it was a hybrid, and it included tiny homes that could be either be leased, long-term rentals, bought, number of things like that. So
Second homes.
yeah, that was considered in
Summer homes.
looking at.
So again, this is a 20-year plan, right? The 20-year vision. And ideally, it will be updated in 10 years. So just to put that back in perspective, as far as you've had several comments that seem to indicate, as well as the survey, there's a fear of multifamily and what that actually means. This policy is very direct in saying that multifamily should not be approved outside of your rural activity centers, which is a neighborhood serving hub for your community for commercial uses. That's an ideal location for mixed use, which actually our zoning ordinance would allow today in those rural activity centers, but it has to be mixed use, a mixed commercial residential use, not a standalone multifamily development. So, the idea is that you can have an activity center that you could walk to. You don't have a lot of development like that, though, where there's actually a service where you can walk to. So think of your long-term vision here as well. And how that ties into your transportation policies and commuter options.
I would think that it would buy us 10 more years of, maybe in 10 years, people will feel differently. But right now, 90% of the people that live in the planning area do not want multi-unit.
And I think we are addressing that fairly well. And the fact that the survey is included as a part of the area plan also addresses that. A simple matter of looking at that percentage, and I think it was 87% in the survey. If you were on the Planning and Zoning Commission, you'd certainly be looking at that and saying, wait a minute, if somebody came in and wanted to develop multifamily housing anywhere. The message is very emphatic and it is there.
I agree with John.
I have an additional reason why we want to limit high density. Number one, we want to preserve as much of the natural beauty around us, preserve the wildlife, preserve the ability to come and go out of wild areas. I don't know how else to describe it, that it is a preservation attempt, not necessarily for the humans, but for the life around us, the wildlife, the scenery, the trees, and high density is anathema to that kind of living. And everybody has to have a septic tank if they move. And that's another thing that we have to consider. Septic tanks are how we dispose of waste. So for those reasons, we believe it is wise and provident not to try to overload our systems, both our wildlife and forested system and our water system and septic system. It's simply, we can't support more people.
Mhm.
Your point is well made, Harriet. Coming back, trying to resolve the wording that we're trying to achieve for this. I think we're very close with what we have. And I see that, you know, the rural activity centers are the only places that are going to provide the variety of housing opportunities that we've agreed we want to have available. Because land prices have simply gone through the roof out here. And it's just, well, you all know how expensive it is to build anymore. So I'm in favor of maintaining outside of the rural activity centers because that's where the variety would be able to occur.
Got to agree with you, Brian.
I don't understand what you said. You said go ahead and allow multi-unit in the activity centers?
Okay, if you
Is that what you
read
said?
LU6, we leave it exactly as it is. Because it only in the rural activity centers are you going to be able to get any variety of housing that would allow folks on lower income to live, unless they were to, you know, find some place out in Winona that has a small shack on it and somebody's selling it because they inherited and wanted to get rid of it.
Yes, he's saying that, Bernice. Yep.
Keep it,
I
keep
still
it how
think
it
we
is.
ought to incorporate Russell's comments that they should not be.
I do
permitted
too.
in the planning area unless already zoned for multiple.
Already zoned. Yep.
development. We do have places out here. We have people that are rent places that are the ADUs on the.
Are you,
I mean,
are you suggesting that we simply add to that outside of activity centers unless already zoned?
no, I'm saying that.
Yeah.
That we could say that new multiple family development projects should not be approved should not be approved unless already zoned for multiple family developments.
Oh, that is contrary to the way that the zoning code works in a way that you can certainly apply for that because it would be allowed under the code. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get it. And when it is
We could apply for it.
And when it is scrutinized by staff, P&Z Commission and the board, the likelihood of anything like that succeeding is pretty slim. But nevertheless, the code permits you to apply for that rezoning. You can't tell people you can't apply for it.
Right. You can still apply for it, but the reasoning behind us adding it in our area plan is because 90% of the people in the planning area want it.
That may be, but I think that is already made quite clear with the language that we have.
Well, this makes it even clearer.
I'm not sure it does.
Is there
Let me
such a
hear-
thing as calling the question on this committee? I call the question and a vote.
Thank you, Harriet. That's exactly where I was going to go. No, seriously.
Yeah.
So what I'd like to see is a show of hands for those individuals who want to keep LU6 as it currently reads. And you can use your, what shall I say, reactions to put a hand up. So if you're in favor of LU6 as it currently reads, please put your hand up using your reaction button.
Well, Brian, I want to know what would be the alternative? Take it out or add without being rezoned? Are we going to
That's a-
change it?
That's a very good question. I would say that you take out outside, that we drop outside of rural activity centers.
Okay.
That
Zone it.
means you can have it all over Donny Park and Timberline and Fernwood.
Okay.
Not
Wouldn't be
so-
confined.
If anyone's looking for your reaction button, it's under the more, the three dots.
1, 2, 3.
I think this is unclear what we're voting on.
I do too. Now I'm unclear.
This is unclear.
Let me see if I can make it a little clearer, okay? I'm frustrated here. What I have said is that if you support having LU6 remain as it is, put your hand up at this point.
Okay.
If you are wanting
Should not
to
be approved.
edit, if you're wanting to edit LU6, I will ask for those hands next. Okay? 1,
So
2, 3,
everybody-
4, 5.
Wait, we want to edit it?
Yeah, I can clarify. So Brian's question was, if you want to keep LU6 as is, put your hand up. He was going to ask a second question then about modifying it. So I think Harry is trying to put her hand up, but it's just raising her hand. It's not the
Okay.
reaction button.
Okay, so Harriet is 6.
Ah,
Okay, so I have Harriet, Dave Browning, John Ruggles,
Approved
myself,
outside of the activity center.
Monica, Jim Clifford. Evelyn, is your hand up?
Yes.
7. So 7 votes for. And those who want to modify LU6, everybody else take your hands down. Those who want to modify LU6, raise your hand.
Use now.
And I see Bernice. So 1. So the vote is 7-1. So let's move on from LU6 and Melissa, let's move to our next comment, please.
Okay, so there were several then related to LU6. And then we'll go to the next one is for LU7. That's comment number 60. Actually, it says I'm sorry, that was one that was also 6. We don't need condos, townhomes are like out here. So that was the same, related to the same policy. So then we jump to policy 15. And policy 15 is Policy 15 is commercial development should be limited to those proposing neighborhood commercial businesses, or at least those that would do a majority of their businesses in the planning area, as opposed to regional commercial uses that would be better located within the city. These neighborhood-oriented developments should be low-intensity types of businesses that will have minimal impacts on surrounding neighborhoods with respect to traffic, noise, lighting, and other issues addressed in other policies and the design review overlay guidelines.
Melissa, I would like to point out to everyone that we have a classification in the zoning code for neighborhood commercial. And if you look at the description of what that should be in the code, that's just what we're talking about here.
Okay, it looks like we've got several comments related to this, number 15. And the first one, comment 63, sounds like you are recommending more retail outlets here. Please review your survey and all those empty retail stores in the city of Flagstaff under those awful student housing units that are not full. Yuck, yuck, yuck. Please refer to your survey. Do we really need this? The next comment also related to that policy is, along with ensuring impact and benefit to local residences by these businesses, these should not be types of businesses creating or increasing traffic congestion or roadway safety issues on surrounding public roadways, such as casinos, entertainment, etc., in our rural community. And then there are two more comments related to that. Rumor is that Horseman's Lodge will be turned into a casino. I understand your committee has no hand in this, but I want to bring to your attention LU 15 and 16, which best describes how a casino should not be approved. I certainly hope if this becomes discussion in the future, the rural nature of our area will be maintained and we do not allow a casino to forever open the doors to negative change it would bring to our rural neighborhood. And then the final comment related to 15, we don't need more commercial business out here. Stop going against the survey that was sent out.
Melissa, could you remind us what the survey results were on this topic in terms of having more businesses?
I believe the survey asked the question, what type of commercial development
Right.
would be desired? And, you know, I could pull it up, but the overwhelming response was that it would be small retail, neighborhood serving retail, like coffee shops, restaurants, small retail stores. So there was the type of commercial development that was a question that was asked in terms of this.
Yeah,
So
and-
this what this policy is directed to is what type of commercial development would be desired.
And that is what the neighborhood commercial is intended to be for. It could be a very small part of a parcel. I think the minimum size is 10,000 square feet.
The majority of the written comments, though, see my hand is still up. The majority of the written comments to the survey were very much against increased commercial, industrial, or residential density. And the way that question was asked, it wasn't asked if you wanted increased commercial or not. So people didn't have a chance to answer that on the question.
It was what kind did you want, not if you wanted it, right? Is that what you're saying, Bernice?
Right.
Well,
Yes,
there was a
yes.
question though that asked if you wanted additional commercial zoning, and that response was the majority said no additional commercial zoning.
Right, right.
So there were two questions, and this is specific to type. For you do have a fair amount of existing commercial zoning that is not developed. I can't remember off the top of my head the number of acres. It's a couple hundred acres of vacant commercial land that could be developed. And so the question was related to what type of commercial development you would prefer to see. Now, some of those properties, are existing with the existing commercial zoning, they're entitled to build some types of commercial projects that don't require a conditional use permit. They would just be permitted by right. A coffee shop, for instance, would just require a building permit, but this still then would be utilized for rezoning types of cases, that sort of thing. And
even with that, there are a number of performance standards that have to be considered. Something that comes to mind would be timberline firearms. Initially, it required a use permit, even though the commercial zoning was in existence, because it was considered an indoor recreational facility. That is no longer the case, however. But that is an example of commercial development. on existing commercially zoned property.
So coming back to what the survey said, what I'm hearing is that the survey said that they wanted community-based commercial, and that would be things like the coffee shops or a small grocery store or restaurant type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Question.
What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to put into perspective what the survey was telling us and then compare it with what the comments are that we have. And the comments are basically, let's not have any more development.
Yeah, Brian, and that is exactly the kind of thing that was considered when there was a proposal to rezone the property that was to the north of the Chevron station at Campbell. And
Yes.
that got a unanimous turn down by the P&Z Commission.
Yes, I recall I was in that meeting.
Yeah.
Question 33 says, do you feel there is a need for additionally commercially zoned property in DPTF for uses such as retail, offices, and services in DPTF? 85.67% answered no, no additional commercial.
Right. And
I think people realized how much commercial property there is that is not
Right.
developed.
Okay.
so I could read this policy again. It just says commercial development should be limited to those proposing neighborhood commercial businesses, or at least those that would do a majority of their business in the planning area. So it's really drilling into the types of commercial development the community would rather see on that existing commercially zoned property.
So the kinds of businesses they wanted to see, only 14.33% of the people responded to that question because they said yes, and the others said no more commercial.
But what about the existing commercial that you've already got that's not developed? That's what this is really referring to.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just saying that there should be no more rezoning to commercial.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I think we're in agreement on that.
Yeah, and the last
Bernice.
request for that was turned down. And the neighbors had a lot to say about it for that reason.
Okay.
So going back to the survey then, as far as the types of commercial development that you would want to see, does this policy reflect that?
I think Melissa summed it up rather well there.
Yes, I agree.
There are the comments.
Okay, so we've addressed the traffic issue. We're not recommending more retail stores. We're trying to get to having commercial businesses that will support the local community.
Right.
Yep, that is absolutely correct in my book.
Do any of the committee members have edits that you want to suggest for LU 15? I do not see any hands.
Could you wait just a second, please?
Bernice, you were breaking up. What did you say?
Could you please hold on just a moment, please?
Could you go back? This is Liz. Could you go back to showing the policy instead of the comments just for a moment? Yeah, thank you. Because I wondered, should we do, or like John says, you don't want to be too specific, like, we do that, like, for instance, when it says neighborhood commercial businesses. We don't have to be more specific in that. I mean,
Well, Liz, neighborhood commercial is
Yeah.
a category in the code.
so there's
And,
okay.
It does discuss the type of business, and that is that essentially serves the neighborhood. Not a big box store, not something that
Okay.
ships stuff out of here.
I just don't want another dollar store. Yeah. But would a dollar store be included in that?
I
Yes.
think you could
Yuck.
probably make the argument that it would be.
Another plastic store, right?
I'm
Well,
worried about water usage too, with you're saying that there's a lot of commercially zoned.
I know, Edith, just
areas
wait.
that's not- That there's a lot of commercially zoned land that's available. I think that's one of the reasons we need to restrict the water usage.
Well, we get to that later. And I would suggest, if you have not done so already, read the letter from the head of the Donny Park Water Company that Melissa sent out, I
Okay.
believe yesterday.
It was this morning.
It was
This
today.
Yeah, it was this morning. It was today.
Okay,
and they laid it out very
they
thoroughly
did.
and
Okay.
quite accurately.
They
Now,
didn't talk about the infrastructure though.
well, we haven't gotten there.
Well,
That's a good point, Kim, not Kim, Evelyn. It is 10 minutes till 8. And what I'm going to try to do is to finish up LU 15 and see if we're ready to call it quits for tonight. Harriet was applauding.
mhm.
Okay, so I have not heard any edits to LU 15. So we keep LU 15 as it is.
Yep, I think it's
And
pretty
let's
well.
move to Melissa, if we can then move on and close the meeting.
Okay.
Or begin closing, because otherwise we'll be here till 3 o'clock in the morning.
Here's Rob Wilson. Joining you right now. Hold on, give him a minute to join.
Hello, Rob.
Good evening.
Since you're here, no, I can't say that. We're just about to close out, but
We're just gonna
welcome.
say goodnight all.
Yeah,
Okay, well, I
Time
tried.
to get here. Good time.
Traffic in Seattle was way worse than I thought. Sorry about that.
Well, good timing though. Rob, here's the review schedule.
Mhm.
And tonight we got about halfway through land use growth and development. We did.
I was supposed to watch that.
We do have another meeting scheduled a week from tonight, the 16th. And then we would continue with land use growth and development. And there was an interest in having.
Something that he said to her, like, we'll do that later.
I'm not sure who's interrupting us, Melissa.
She wants to be.
Could everybody please go on mute?
Bring up shit that.
Thanks.
Better.
Yeah, there was interest in having public safety scheduled for next Thursday. If we would get to that, and inviting the fire district to that meeting as well. So I haven't contacted them yet. Not wanting to have them on schedule if we don't have a chance to get to them. The other thing I wanted to mention about that meeting next Thursday is that if we could start it at 6 o'clock, I have another commitment that will go until at least 4 o'clock, a retreat with the Planning Commission. So I wondered if that would be acceptable.
Hey,
I'm available.
in the interest of preserving Melissa's sanity, I think that's a good idea.
So we're gonna do 6 to 8. We're not gonna get crazy and try to go later, right?
It's
I
up
think
to
6
you
to
guys.
8 would be, Monica, I agree with you. 2 hours should be enough.
Yeah,
Okay,
that was
cool.
the thing. Start an hour later, but end at the same time.
Yes.
In that case, I don't think we could get public safety in.
Okay.
Likely not. Hopefully we finish land use growth and development.
Okay, are we gonna do comments, at the end of the comments that we have from the public
Tonight, yes.
tonight or
Oh,
meeting?
oh, I thought you meant public, or the normal public comment period tonight.
No, I meant the comments that I made, that I submitted back in August.
So let's see, we will go through those, and we're actually covering a lot of that material as we're moving forward. You did have other comments that we will review.
Okay, great. So we'll try to get through those next week too.
Yes.
If we can do it quickly.
I have a really quick one from Russell. He had a question as to why there's a Chevron station at 89 and Campbell, if it's not a rural activity center. And I believe it was already explained to me, but I think John would do a good job of explaining it to Russell.
That very simply was done. I believe the approval for that goes back to 1998. Monica might have a comment or two on that for background. It was and still is controversial because it was not in a designated activity center. A different board of supervisors approved that. Unfortunately, it was not a good precedent. So beyond that, one of the people I could always ask about that would be a former representative, Tom Chabin, for more background. So I could always give him a call and ask about that a little.
I can speak to
Right.
that quite honestly, John Ruggles. He voted against the public and Deb Hill ran against him. And I
Yep.
helped her campaign and he was defeated. And he now calls
Right.
me the little lady who kicked his ass out of his job.
But
But that's the pain you suffer for going against the public.
right, and that was after the fact.
Yeah.
And
Stop
it
Chris,
is not
stop it.
something that I've gotten to know Tom fairly well, and that is not something I would agree with him on.
Let's stay on task because we're getting close
A
to my
little political.
bedtime. Okay, so we have, yeah, December 16th is our next meeting. I'm
Right.
not sure what you're showing me.
This is just a slide showing the
How far behind
process
we
from
are.
beginning and a potential ending time. So that's all this is.
Okay,
Beginning in January of 2020 through
Right.
the open house, September 28th of 2021. And then possibly looking at public hearings in possibly the spring of 2022.
okay.
And there's your next meeting date at 6 o'clock. I'll send the
Right.
agenda out and then,
Are you gonna resend the Zoom invite and adjust it to 6?
yes, it will be a different Zoom invite.
Okay. Because
Oh,
right now, the one that's went into the calendar is 5:30.
okay, thanks. I'll change that. Thank you.
Okay, let's go to public comment. So if you are a member of the public of our community, first of all, thank you very much for joining us this evening. And if you have a comment, please unmute yourself and you have 3 minutes to share. Any comments?
Yeah, this is Russell Weedman.
Go ahead, Russell.
Yeah, a lot of times at you really struggled. The committee seemed to struggle over LU6 and a lot of the comments that were made. And it just seemed so simple to me that, you know, this area plan should be reflecting what the community wants. And you had that, and it's not about anyone on the committee, about their opinion or my opinion. It's about the community. And in many ways, it seems like when it gets tough, you kind of back off. You know, you're afraid to make that decision, that stronger decision, and it's the community that's making it. It's not anybody on the community. And, you know, like on LU6, well, it said something earlier, I forget what it was, in LU something, where it covered, you know, multifamily housing. But look at that Chevron station. That's a good example of why you can't just say something once. You could say it every single day, and that still got pushed through. That's not what the community wanted. And the results of that survey and the comments you made are what the community wants. And that should be reflected in the vision statement, policies, goals, all of it. It's, you know, I'm a little disappointed in that. I mean, my God, you opened the door again or left it open. I don't know who wrote that originally, but left it open for multi-story housing on the rural activity centers. That's 5 acres on each corner. On 4 corners, that's a half a mile. Get in your car and drive a half a mile. See how long that is. That's a half a mile of multi-story housing can be a possibility. It's not what people wanted, not what the survey said. So anyway, good luck on all this. It's not easy, I can see that. But anyway, thank you for the time to make a comment.
Thank you, Russell. If I can share with you very quickly, we did look at each of those rural activity centers and the amount of building that is already there. And this is not multi-storied apartments. This is multi-family. And from my perception, it's the only way that folks without a high income could continue to live here in Donny Park.
You know, it's been like that in every single city or area I've lived in. It's always that, more affordable housing, more, but it keeps going up.
Well,
it's like don't build out, build up. So you build up and then it spreads out farther.
Well, that's, again, there is a height requirement that John Ruggles has referred to a couple of times. So.
And what is that?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I think it's
2 stories.
It's got to be at least 2 stories.
So,
well, yeah.
Well, but for a single family residential, it's 35 feet anyway. For single family residential, it's 35 feet.
That's a good 2 stories. So a lot of the townhouses, the older ones in town before they changed it from like 3 acres to 5 acres were 2 stories. Just imagine that, a half a mile of 2-story multifamily house.
It's not a half mile, Russell, if you look at what's already in those rural activity centers.
Well, and that's why they make backhoes and bulldozers. You just move what's there, and then you put in something that's going to make you more money. They do it on Flagstaff every day. It's not, you know, I'm just stating facts.
So Russell, we're gonna move on. I do want to thank you though. You've been consistently attending and sharing your opinion.
Yeah, that's what
it has been honored.
Well, we'll see what happens here now.
Okay.
You know, I've watched it for 50 years out here. I know the changes that go on, and you know, the Chevron station was a good example. There'll be a whole new board of supervisors, and but you do everything you can to protect what you have. It was stated by other committee members. So anyway, I know I've gone over 3 minutes, so there you go.
Thank you, Russell.
All right.
Thank you,
Any
Russell.
any other community members wishing to share their thoughts? Hearing none, let me go to committee members. Any committee member want to share their thoughts?
Yeah, I've had enough to say this evening, I think, for everybody.
Thank you, John.
I feel,
I value your input, John.
I feel the vote on LU6 was rushed. And we didn't understand what we were
Yeah.
voting.
I wanted more discussion, but I know everyone's nauseated, but I just think that these are such important issues. Just
Okay.
important issues that need discussion more. And if it takes longer time, it takes longer time. That was Liz.
Thank you, Liz. Dave?
No, I just, I'm just looking back over the last whatever year and so, and saying that, this committee works really hard and trying to get it right. And we try to do everything that we can. And it takes time and it takes effort and it takes, sometimes conflict, and sometimes you win and sometimes you don't.
All right. Let me go to Evelyn.
Why?
Do you have a final comment?
Oh, no, Well, maybe. I was just wondering, I had my hand up for LU6 and I'm just wondering if I could take that away. I'm too confused about it. Is it possible to take it down to 5 instead
Good job. Good job. See, that's why I didn't vote on LU6. I wanted more discussion.
Yeah, it was either vote or not vote, and I should have just not voted.
Not voted, right.
Yeah, instead of vote, I guess I just sort of felt like I had to vote one way or the other, and instead of just not voting at all, because I'm still just not sure what, like the wording. I'm just worried about the wording.
Yep, that's why I didn't vote. Very good.
I
So,
think we
discuss it
should
again.
do it over. I think
Evelyn,
we
what
should
if,
do it over and have more discussion.
okay, I don't know who's interrupting, but please. Evelyn, I'm going to ask that you do the same that I asked Bernice, and that is go back and write down what you think LU6, what you think it should be written, how you would like it to be written.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Rob Wilson.
No, I'm not qualified to comment tonight.
Okay. Well, I want to thank all of the committee members. You guys, it's good working with you. Yes, we do hit stumbling blocks. That's part of the process of trying to figure out what's the best for our community. But I have a great deal of respect for each member of our committee. I also want to thank the public. Many of you have been joining in our meetings consistently, and we appreciate that. And all I can share is that on December 16th, Rob Wilson will be chairing our meeting. And so I'm sure he'll get us through LU6 and everything else in land use. Any other thoughts, Melissa?
Brian, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody. I know that this has been a long haul, and from a staff perspective, we very, very much appreciate all of your perseverance and dedication, and ultimately really good input. So, your guidance and your debates and your thoughts are, we take them seriously and we very much appreciate it. And I had just one final slide. Wishing everybody
thank
happy
you.
holidays.
Awesome.
Hopefully we'll get some of this stuff tonight.
I know, but I'd rather get rain. Snow is a lot less than rain. We need rain. Rain? Snow is beautiful, but rain is better. Because you can get 3 inches of rain and that doesn't equal, 3 inches of rain does not equal 3 inches of snow. Right?
I think you have that backwards.
No, I don't.
Okay.
I'll look it up, Brian. Thank you.
What I'm saying is that you get less
More with
water.
snow?
You get
Really?
less water out of an inch of snow than you do an inch of rain.
That's what I said. I said I want more rain than snow.
Okay.
You didn't hear me. I said more rain than snow because snow is puffed up.
Thank you.
Rain is solid. Thank you.
Melissa,
Yes,
your hand's up.
my hand, I will take it down.
Well, thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful week. We'll see you on December 16th.
Next week.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good. Thank you
Good
very
night.
much, everyone.